Let's begin with the foundations. Welcome to another lecture. Today we consider the life and work of Daveigh Chase, 1990 to 2026. If you recognize both a kind, stubborn little girl who befriends a blue alien and a waterlogged specter crawling from a television, then you already know the arc of our discussion. I am Professor Alexei, and with me is Priyanka. Together we will map an unusually wide artistic range, the contingencies that made it possible, and the social systems that later failed to protect it.
Hi everyone, I'm Priyanka. I'm really glad we're talking about this today because her work touched very different audiences, and her later years raised some hard questions we still, struggle to answer well.
To frame our discussion in simpler terms, Daveigh Chase was a child actor who bridged animation and live action with uncommon agility. She voiced Lilo in Disney's Lilo and Stitch and embodied Samara in The Ring within the same year, a juxtaposition that is, by any empirical measure of tone, extreme. Technically, we observe a performer whose contributions span major nodes of early 21st century screen culture: Disney feature animation, Studio Ghibli's global reach via English dubbing, and the American wave of J-horror remakes, delivered with vocal precision, physical discipline under prosthetics, and a consistent ability to occupy moral ambiguity on television.
Maybe a quick glossary helps. The Annie Awards honor excellence in animation. She won for voice acting as Lilo. The MTV Movie and TV Awards a popular vote. She won Best Villain for The Ring. And a polygamist fundamentalist compound, like in Big Love, is basically a closed religious community with strict hierarchy and plural marriage, which shaped her character's psychology on that show. Also, when we say range, we really mean emotional and technical range, switching from tender, naturalistic kid emotions behind a microphone to, terrifying physicality with minimal dialogue.
This brings us to relevance. Culturally, Samara Morgan became an icon of early 2000s horror. The long hair, the drip of the well, the unblinking gaze. Lilo, meanwhile, anchored a franchise about found family that reached hundreds of millions globally. The same performer also voiced Chihiro in the English release of Spirited Away, a film that expanded the Western audience for Hayao Miyazaki. It is crucial to understand that such visibility carries both opportunity and risk. Child careers are often misread as self-propelled, when in fact they depend upon dense scaffolding of caretaking, labor law, education on set, and later, the fragile handoff to adulthood.
And the stakes are high, because we tend to assume continuity. If someone is famous at 12, we imagine a straight line to 35. But the record shows shocks, gaps, and, systems that do not always catch people when they fall.
Now the basic history. Daveigh Elizabeth Chase Schwallier was born July 1990 in Las Vegas. After her parents' separation, she was raised primarily in Albany, Oregon. Early dance and vocal training began around age 3. Stage work in the Pacific Northwest honed timing and projection. During a 1998 family road trip to Los Angeles, her mother suffered a serious car accident. Doctors restricted driving, so the family stayed in Southern California. Proximity to casting calls led to representation and rapid bookings, and by that year she was already performing regionally in the musical Utah. By 1999 and 2000, she appeared across network television, learning the grammar of fast-paced sets. In 2001, she reached a critical inflection point. Samantha Darko in Donnie Darko, and the English voice of Chihiro in Spirited Away. In 2002, she voiced Lilo in Lilo and Stitch and portrayed Samara in The Ring, a role requiring extensive prosthetics and physically uncomfortable stunt work. The performance's brevity belied its cultural impact. 2003 brought two poles of recognition: the Annie Award for Lilo, and MTV's Best Villain for The Ring. She sustained the Lilo role across Stitch spin-offs through 2006, led the Disney Channel series, and simultaneously broadened into sitcom work with Oliver Bean. On HBO's Big Love from 2006 to 2011, she played Rhonda Vollmer, a manipulative teenager from a fundamentalist compound. Critics noted the character's moral opacity and survival instincts. Additional notes: she voiced the lead in the PBS series Betsy's Kindergarten Adventures in 2008, a long-form educational role often overshadowed by her franchise credits. She returned to the Darko universe in 2009's S. Darko, critically panned but culturally connective tissue for the cult original. Later work concentrated in independent thrillers. American Romance and Jack Goes Home in 2016 were her final film roles, alongside voice work in the video game Let It Die. After 2016, there were no new credits. While some inferred retirement, there was no formal announcement. Turning to her legal and personal struggles, in 2017 and 2018, legal troubles included detention in a case involving a man's overdose death, an arrest as a passenger in a reported stolen vehicle, and separate drug possession charges. Coverage framed these within broader struggles with addiction. In the late 2010s, accounts she withdrew from public view and experienced periods of homelessness in downtown Los Angeles, including Skid Row. Granular timelines remain incomplete in the public record. In June 2026, she was hospitalized in Los Angeles with severe malnutrition. She was diagnosed with meningitis and multiple bloodstream infections. Septic shock ensued, leading to organ failure. She died in June 2026 at age 35. The following day, her partner, Roy Hernandez, announced the death publicly. He had launched a crowdfunding campaign hours before she passed, which also alleged family estrangement and bullying. Those latter specifics are single-source and unverified. We note them as claims rather than settled fact.
Two quick details stand out to me. First, the 2002 whiplash. Lilo and Samara within months is still startling. Second, that MTV Best Villain win in 2003. She beat Daniel Day-Lewis and Willem Dafoe, which tells you how saturated that image became. And maybe one more. The Ring 2 credited her via archival footage, while Kelly Stables performed new scenes, which shows how definitive the original performance was.
A brief personal note. As an instructor, I have occasionally placed Lilo and Samara side by side when teaching about semiotic contrast, how voice alone can carry the weight of empathy, and how minimal dialogue plus choreography can encode dread. It clarified for my students and for me that range is not rhetorical flourish, but a measurable capacity to modulate audience physiology and ethics in real time. This logically leads us to three questions. First, historically. What if her mother's 1998 accident had not kept the family in Los Angeles long enough to ignite the career? Second, a counterfactual of support. What if, after the 2017 to 2018 legal crises, she had received sustained comprehensive treatment and housing stability? Third, a present-day inquiry. How should we understand and better structure the transition from child stardom to adult well-being? On the first question, the 1998 accident is a textbook case of contingency. Geography is destiny in entertainment markets. Audition density in Los Angeles relative to Albany, Oregon, is orders of magnitude larger. The family's enforced stay produced a burst of exposure. Commercials, agents, episodic roles, and within roughly 3 years, major features and landmark voice work. Without that pause, we cannot assert she would not have acted. But the probability distribution shifts. The usual slower pipeline, regional theater, occasional travel, and fewer in-person callbacks, rarely yields Donnie Darko plus Spirited Away plus Lilo and Stitch by age 12.
I am curious about the role of family support here. Like, even with proximity, how essential was her mother's involvement? The homeschooling, the bi-state living, all that logistics work.
It is important to understand that child performance is a family enterprise. Talent supplies necessary conditions, but logistics supplies sufficient ones. In this case, homeschooling managed by her mother permitted flexible hours. Dual residency between Oregon and Los Angeles sustained both stability and access, and a guardian on set is a legal and practical requirement. We can infer that the parental infrastructure, paperwork, travel, tutoring, childcare for siblings, converted chance into trajectory. Absent that scaffolding, even in Los Angeles, attrition rates are high. On the second question, the counterfactual of support after 2017 and 2018. Suppose there had been uninterrupted evidence-based addiction treatment, a housing-first model for stability, consistent primary care and mental health follow-up, and legal diversion emphasizing recovery. Under that regime, a plausible path is a gradual return to low-visibility, high-skill work, such as voice acting. Microphones are forgiving of gaps in on-camera presence, and unions, when thresholds are met, can provide health coverage. To be clear, we do not know her union status or benefits history. I name general mechanisms, not her particulars. The core point is that relapse-sensitive, long-horizon care often converts spirals into plateaus, and plateaus into renewals.
So, what about the industry's responsibility? Can we maybe now look at what studios or guilds or agencies actually do for people in crisis, and where the gaps usually are?
Speaking of systems, guilds such as actors' unions often operate assistance programs, mental health referrals, and emergency funds. Eligibility, however, depends on membership and earnings thresholds. Agencies and studios, as a rule, are not long-term care providers. They may facilitate short-term interventions, but continuity of treatment tends to fall to public health infrastructure and personal networks. Child labor statutes, studio teachers, and trust protections like Coogan laws are designed primarily for minors and earnings. The transition to adulthood is where scaffolding thins. Potential interventions include structured transition programs, portable health coverage decoupled from annual income volatility, guaranteed access to addiction treatment without wait lists, and supported employment on lower-risk assignments while recovery consolidates. None of this is simple. All of it is feasible. On the third question, present-day challenges for former child stars. The literature and the anecdotal record converge on several stressors. Identity foreclosure, where a person is known globally for who they were at 10, typecasting that narrows the feasible set of roles. Financial volatility when residuals decline, and media ecosystems that convert private setbacks into public spectacle. In Chase's case, the late 2010s coverage emphasized legal incidents and instability. The record includes claims of estrangement and bullying relayed via a fundraiser, which remains single source. We should practice epistemic humility, verify what is verifiable, and avoid letting later suffering retroactively erase earlier achievement.
What support exists today for the transition? Like, if a young actor finishes a long-running show at, say, 18 or 19, what are the best tools we have, and what is still missing?
Currently, there are studio teachers ensuring academic progress, guardianship requirements, hour limits, and counsel around financial trusts. Some families and managers now proactively add therapy, media training, and financial literacy. Unions and nonprofits can provide counseling referrals and short-term aid. Yet the longitudinal bridge is thin. We lack routine-funded transition clinics that combine primary care, mental health, addiction services, and career counseling under one roof. We lack automatic portability of health coverage during low earnings years. And we lack, to some extent, public policy that treats housing stability as a prerequisite for recovery rather than a reward for it. Research-wise, we need longitudinal cohorts to evaluate which interventions measurably reduce crises in the decade after child stardom. Program-wise, we need to build what the data says works. In conclusion, Daveigh Chase's career can be defined succinctly as extraordinary range at a young age. Lilo's warmth, Chihiro's vulnerability, Samara's terror, and Rhonda Vollmer's calculus of survival. We asked 3 questions: the historical contingency of a 1998 accident and its career cascade, a counterfactual where sustained support might have enabled recovery and return, and a present-day inquiry into how to shore up the transition from child fame to adult stability. Further study should integrate entertainment labor history with public health and social policy, because the story we just traced is not only about one performer, but about the systems around her.
So, I guess that kind of sums it up. Thank you, Professor. And thanks to all of you for listening. Take care, and we will see you next time.